Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, we've talked to him before and he's made more progress. It's Shawn Kelly. He's coming to us from England and describing how he's virtualized his radio stations. He's going to go through some pretty specifics about how he's done it with some cast-off, off-lease Dell servers. He's really an interesting guy, and he loves radio. Coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionics Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to the light bulb at the top of the tower. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host. Delighted to be here, and I'm not in the usual Telos Alliance studio. That is my office in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm actually coming to you from Cleveland, Mississippi, from Delta Radio, where we have three of our radio stations in Mississippi are right here. WKXY, if you want to know. Also WBYB and WZYQ. Those are all headquartered in the building where I'm in. Even though I'm not in the Telos Alliance studio, I've got just a ton of Telos Alliance gear. We've got an Axia console here, all AOIP. This gear's all been in place here for now over 10 years. I've got some Omnia audio processors, of course, and some Zip ones, just all kinds of Telos Alliance gear, because I have to eat my own dog food and enjoy it too. So welcome in. Hey, I want to introduce our guest really quickly. Our guest is Shawn Kelly. Shawn's been here before. Shawn, welcome in. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you, Kirk. How are you doing?
I'm terrific, and you're up rather late. It's 4:00 in the afternoon Central Time for me. What time is it where you are?
It's just gone 10 o'clock, so it's not too bad. Normally up a little bit later than this.
Okay, yeah, you still have time to watch half a movie anyway.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Or the evening news. Hey, in the U.S. and Central Time Zone, our late news, local news, comes on at about 10 p.m. for most stations. I think the Fox affiliates start about 9 o'clock. Do you guys have late news in England, and what time does it start?
Yeah, we do. Same over here. They're all the main ones, the BBC and the ITV channels. They are all 10 o'clock. So, and then we've got all the usual 24-hour ones as well.
Yeah. Well, here in the Eastern Time Zone, the local news tends to start at 11 o'clock. So that's a little bit different, except for the Fox affiliates. They often start at 10. So, wow. Hey, welcome into the show. Shawn and I are going to be talking about audio over IP and virtualization. Now, I know we've talked about virtualization before, and sometimes we talk about it in a theoretical sense. But Shawn Kelly has been doing he's been doing virtualizing some of his radio stations. And we're going to talk to Shawn about that, about what some of the pitfalls are. And he's been doing it kind of on the cheap. I mean, he's found some inexpensive ways to get servers and to virtualize that. And I want to hear from Shawn exactly what he's doing. But first, I got a quick announcement about Nautel. Nautel is continuing their Transmission Talk Tuesday webinars. And it's really webinar is the wrong word. It's really a roundtable. Now, I was delighted to join Jeff Welton this past Tuesday, August the 17th. We talked about MPX over IP and MPX over AES. Point was, it's multiplex, FM composite, FM multiplex over something other than an analog cable. And that was a terrific, I think we went on for about 70 minutes, about an hour and 10 minutes, and had a great time. Answered some questions, too, along the way, so it was good to have people asking those. But there's some webinars that are coming up that Nautel is doing here. Coming up on August the 24th, that's Tuesday. If you're watching this live or shortly thereafter, August 24th of the year 2021, Nautel's Transmission Talk Tuesday is called Building with Raspberry Pi. Okay. Guest Alex Hartman is going to discuss some of the things that he's done with his collection of Raspberry Pis and Arduinos. Now, a lot of us in the engineering community I wouldn't say we're hackers. Some people are, some of us are, the good kind of hackers, of course. Experimenters. I've had probably 4 or 5 Raspberry Pis in the last 7 or 8 years, played with them. I've got a couple of experiments going on right now, in fact, at my office with Raspberry Pis. I want to see what Alex Hartman is doing with Raspberry Pis in a broadcast world. So we'll take a look at that August 24th. You can go register now at nautel.com/webinars. Then August 31st, that's the last Tuesday of August, special guest David Layer. He's Vice President of Advanced Engineering at the NAB, and also Lawrence Galkoff, General Manager of Radio Player Worldwide. They're going to discuss things that can make a big difference on how a station appears on the dashboard and the impact of hybrid radio. And if you're still not sure what hybrid radio is, and it seems like I understand it for a few minutes and then kind of forget, you're going to want to watch this webinar or be part of the roundtable at nautel.com/webinars. This is the one that's August 31st with David Layer and Lawrence Galkoff. So we'll find out about that. Good topics as always. Thanks, Jeff Welton, and thanks Nautel for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech and putting on these webinars. All right, jumping right back in now with Shawn Kelly. Shawn, give us a little bit of an idea of what you do on your LinkedIn page. It just says you're a technical specialist, and I got a feeling that you probably do more than your title. You Brits are masters of the understatement. So tell me what you really do.
Well, I actually run a hotel and pub, to be honest. That's my sort of main core income, small boating company, and then all the tech and everything, and the studios and the online radio station, the virtualization sort of started out as a big hobby and just got very expensive, I suppose, in one sense. Hence why we went down the lines of trying to find cheaper solutions.
Wow. Now, you've been on before and you've told us about a couple of your channels that you're doing. And I'm a little confused or forgetful. Are these stations, I know they're online, of course, because most people are putting their content online, but are you over the air as well there in England, or is it strictly online?
They're strictly online now. They were on air just before COVID. We launched two of the stations in Southern Ireland on the DAB system over there in October 2019. Then, of course, we had that little thing called COVID come along, and unfortunately, the result of that, we run out of money, basically. So we're now strictly an online service. So just one of those things, I suppose.
And I'm sure COVID wasn't helping the beer sales at the pub either. Was there times that your pub was locked down as well?
We spent best part of 9 months of last year closed. So yeah, it was very painful.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah, fortunately, I was over in the States for most of it, so it wasn't too bad.
Wouldn't it be great if we could show that beer actually dispenses with COVID, that the virus can't live around beer? Wouldn't that be great?
Well, that'd be awesome. That would be awesome.
It'd be terrific for a lot of companies. So you're two. Yeah. You have several stations. You have HITz, KISS, and PALM. Tell us about these stations, and then we're going to get into the technicalities of how you're running these and how they are virtualized pretty much from end to end. So go ahead and tell us about these formats you've got.
Okay, so HITz is a classic old school 80s, 70s and 80s station based around the old sort of Radio 1, BBC Radio 1 stations that were around at that time. That's how we're working that one. The KISS is a 90s old school dance with a bit of Y2K EDM in there, so a bit more the poppy dance music that was around in the early 2000s, which I particularly liked and was at sort of the pinnacle of my DJing in clubs and so on at the time, so we used to love doing that. Then PALM Torbay is a new project that came out of the original Seagull FM sort of era when we spoke last time, which was a community radio station. We're now looking at launching a commercial one, purely online and going down the lines of these new sort of internet web radio type technologies that are sort of appearing on the market now for, as little as $30, and you've got a receiver that seems to pick up absolutely anything in the world. So it should be quite interesting to see where we go with this.
Now, you've also got in our notes, in my notes, it says you also carry a friend's country station from Mesa, Arizona. So tell me about that situation.
Yeah, my friend Ryan, we met when I first started going over to sort of Scottsdale, where I was staying with my wife, who is now my wife, my girlfriend at the time. We got chatting over the issue of he had I think you call them low power FM licenses over there in the US, and he was having problems, and we got chatting. It sort of progressed from there, and what we found is he's now back on FM in Mesa. It's only a little low powered thing, so it's not a massive range. He does a great country station, brilliant country station. Arizona Classic Country, I think it's called. And on air is The Ranch. And what he was experiencing was not being able to get feeds out. So we actually carry a 192 kilobits stream for him for the fans in Europe and so on, because a lot of like tuning and so on have started geo-locking in different countries due to issues with I'm assuming music rights and so on. So we carry a stream for him over here on our servers, which I do believe he's very grateful for, because he just doesn't know anybody over this side of the water, I suppose. And I just jumped in and went, well, yeah, stick it on the back of one of my servers, and we'll see where it goes from there. So, hopefully in the future, when I'm looking to do some low powered FM stuff, I've got my consultant to help me with my license.
Well, tell you what, as a favor to all of our listeners and viewers here on TWiRT, you've provided me with the direct stream links for these stations, HITz, KISS, PALM, and the country station as well. So I'm going to put those in the show notes. So if you folks listening want to sample some of these, and you're going to want to, not just for the music or the content, but also realize that what you're hearing on the streams is coming from some virtualized systems. In fact, there's one thing I want to mention on PALM Torbay. You mentioned that you're using some legacy audio processors, so you're actually coming out of the virtualized world for just a moment to go through some legacy. Well, why did you choose these legacy processors?
It was to get that old 80s sound. We use dare I say it, an Optimod. So on. I just have one line around. It's got a nice 80s warm sound to it, and it was like, that's the sound we want. So we come out of an X node and back into the X node. so there's only this little you get the cable things that just sort of link it all together, and that's probably about the only bit of analog in this side of the studios. Some of the remote studios are analog, but it really doesn't matter, because it gives it a nice warm sound to it, to be honest.
Hey, back in the 80s, that's what I was using, Orban processors and some Texar audio prisms in front of them, or maybe the special, the Card 5 to go along with those Texars. Yeah. And then, hey, back in those days, my boss, Frank Fody, he was coming up with processors, but you couldn't buy one. they were all on Z100 in New York there, and you couldn't buy one for a while. Frank and I were friends in the late 80s, and I started to place some of his processors in France, for example, where they wanted a different sound, as kind of hyped up as they could get. Well, that's cool. So everything else is pretty well all. And when you say digital end to end, talk to me. What was your philosophy? And then we'll get in the nitty gritty after our first spot break. But what was your motivation in thinking about keeping your signal maybe even all within one hardware server? I don't know your layout, your topology, but what's your thinking about what a playout system? And well, I'll let you describe. Kind of start in the front and go to the end about how things remain all digital and AOIP.
Yeah, basically, the whole system runs on a Dell R710. We have numerous virtual machines set up on that one now. Some EncoDAD playout systems. We have the DAV muxes are on there. We have the audio processor is actually virtualized 9x2 as well. It was just, from my point of view, flying backwards and forwards from the United States and the UK. Initially, it was it makes my life easier as the engineer for the station, but also, again, in this country, a lot of people don't have the luxuries of having home studios and things like that. So when COVID come around, the biggest problems we were hitting was obviously people can't go into the studios. So we come up with this solution of basically virtualizing it all. We use the VMware remote connector, and we just pop it onto a computer. Very simple bit of software, couple of screens plugged into the laptop or whatever, and boom, there it is. There's your playout system. We use IP tab for controlling the control surfaces in the studios. And what we found is a USB mic, USB headphones straight into the laptop. You've got an end-to-end solution. That quick and easy. And you don't need a lot of money for the remote end to get involved. There's a lot of people want to get involved, but they just don't have the money to buy the high-end equipment and the $1,000 licenses for certain connecting softwares and so on that were used in the industry. And the same over here. The versions of the connecting software, Lucy is one I can think of. We use onto our Comrex inputs, a codecs that we have here. You can't expect everybody to go and buy a $200, $300, $400 license just to have a 1 or 2 hour show every week. So we found a solution, which is basically just virtualizing the USB buses at the remote end, and it seems to work.
So I'm going to, after our break here, we're going to delve a little bit deeper into this. I want to understand, you're running VMware, you've got virtual machines running on that, you got Encode DAD running in there, you've got some kind of a mixer running in there that you're controlling with IP tablet. Then you've got audio processing. I want to hear more about that. And so let's just kind of walk through it. And then I want to make sure I understand if you've got more than one station running on a server. So hang on, we'll find out about that. Shawn Kelly is our guest on This Week in Radio Tech. Shawn is over in England, right on top of his pub in his own hotel. That's just as cool as can be. If I owned a pub, I don't know. That'd be tough. I'm Kirk Harnack at my radio stations in Cleveland, Mississippi on This Week in Radio Tech. Our show is brought to you in part by some other folks in England, and their products are sold all over the world because they're so cool. It's Broadcast Bionics and Camera One. We'll be right back.
Camera One from Broadcast Bionics. Designed to bring video to your audio content. Visualizing radio and podcasts for social media. Camera One can automatically create, capture and brand professionally switched video for live streaming or upload, making your production shareable. Control and configure using a web browser on any device. Camera One is available as a 4-camera or 8-camera system using the Blackmagic A10 Mini range, including the A10 Mini Extreme. You can use cameras to suit your studio and your budget. You'll need 1 camera for a studio wide shot and usually 1 camera per microphone. A standard multi-channel sound card or IP driver monitors audio from each studio microphone, and we work natively with Axia systems. Ideally, this will be a post-fader feed from each mic, although you can use pre-fade audio or a mic split if that's all you have available. These audio levels are used to intelligently switch the video feed when each contributor is talking. You can also group microphones together into one shot and use the audio from a mixer's aux bus. You can use Camera One's auto switch feature, or disable it and switch using the on-screen buttons or the buttons on the A10. Recordings can automatically start when you tell the system you're on the air. This on-air indication can be linked to your studio's red lights via IP or an Avantec Adam GPIO interface. You can quickly browse all the videos that have been automatically created during your broadcast, download them and post. Camera One is a user-installable system. You'll need a good spec Windows 10 PC, i7 with plenty of storage and 16 gig of RAM. It's better if this machine isn't used for anything else. Remember, you can control the software in a web browser on another device on your network. Camera One, a thrifty way of creating scroll-stopping video from your show or podcast from Broadcast Bionics.
I like that. And scroll stopping is true. Everything they do at Broadcast Bionics has to do with you producing better content and putting that content either on the air or on social media, best ofs on social media to drive people either to your web stream or to your actual broadcast facility, your radio station. Check them out at bionic.radio. Bionic.radio is a good way to get there. Thanks a lot, Broadcast Bionics, for Camera One and other innovative solutions, as they say. I'm Kirk Harnack in Cleveland, Mississippi, in one of my radio stations here, WKXY, Kicks 92.1. And with me is Shawn Kelly. He's hanging out above his own pub. Man, not many of us guys get to say that. That's what a dream. But Shawn runs some radio stations. I don't know why he does. Maybe he's just making too much money in the pub business. wants to have some fun in radio. Shawn, go ahead, Shawn.
Yeah, I wish we were making too much money. That'd be very nice.
All right, so I'm interested in the technicalities here of what's going on in the server. What's on the bare metal, and then what operating systems are in there? What have you got running? And you did mention IP tablet. I know that's kind of a remote solution, and I want to know what you're remoting, what you're controlling over there in the. So can you walk us through from hardware to operation?
Yeah, it's not a problem. Basically, we start with a Dell. It's a R710 that we're using at the moment. Picked up for, in American language, probably $800. 196 gig of memory. So 2 hunking great CPUs in it. And basically bare metal RAID. So we had to put the drives in. So we're running a setting mirror. Just mirror 1. That's our sort of scratch drives, and then we've got 2 RAID 5s in there as well. One is dedicated purely to the radio stations, and then we have another bank that are dedicated to admin, back end stuff, and another project I'm doing with the pub sat on the back of that as well. The file servers are all running Ubuntu, so nice and easy, no license issue, very simple to set up, whacking great big 10-15 terabytes of space for the cuts libraries. Not that we're ever going to use that much, but it's available if we need it for the different stations that we run. Then the systems themselves, Enco obviously runs under Windows. We have 9x2's zip streamer on there as well, running under Windows. That's under 7 because we found it works better under 7, and I don't want to really upgrade to 10 if I can avoid it, and I'll explain why later. The remote link studios, as we call them, are both Windows 10, and the IP tab virtual environment's also Windows 10, which then that effectively controls the VX hoster, the main control desk for the station, the X nodes, and all the switching. So effectively, you got total control over everything. And then we've got a backup system for the VX as well, because not a lot of them get on with it fantastically well yet. So we've got PhoneBox as well as a backup system, which works very well remotely, weirdly enough. I don't think it was ever designed to do it, but in a virtual environment, it works really well. So that's the core of the system. We then have that going out onto a big Cisco switch set up by one of your guys, I believe, a few years back for me. We had a few problems with it. And out of that, we sort of load balance the 10 gigabit network cards that we've got in the back. So tons of bandwidth there. And pretty much the only other stuff that's involved in the network there is a Core 32, which is the main control desk. We got the VX hoster, which I do believe, funnily enough, came from Broadcast Bionics. They found me one of the original ones over here. Hence why we got the VX V-sets and everything, as you've seen in the pictures from our studios here. We got an X node, which then handles all the older legacy codecs. Like we got a couple of brick links. We got a Comrex access rack there that I use on my mobile studio to link back, because I haven't got around to playing too much of the X nodes yet. So I only recently acquired one of those to link everything together. And that's the core of the system, basically. And then everything just sits in the virtual environment within the virtual networks on the Dell running ESXi. We have the Dell version on there. We found that runs better than the core generic ones that they put out there. Does have its limitations to a degree, because obviously the machine's quite old. So it only goes up to, I think it's 6.75 or something like that, ESXi. But it's good enough. It works. The only big issue we found is tuning Windows for the Axie audio drivers. We do get a lot of problems with the jitter and things. So on with under Windows 10, it's a nightmare. Windows 7, we've got some machines running pretty much zero jitter. So, but within the virtual environment, but on the same machine, then we got a Windows 10 one that's running at 250,000, and it does cause some problems. We suspect it's down to Microsoft ourselves when they're forcing the updates on the Windows 10, which is a real pain.
We'll circle back around to Windows 10 because there has been an update that my friends at Axia had to do to make up for something that Windows did that was unexpected and kind of terrible. Yeah. We'll circle back around to that. Maybe that would help you out. I know to help other people out. So on your bare metal, your Dell server that is a few years old, I've bought a few of those as well myself for about the same price, $600, $800 US. Yeah. Had to add, typically had to do new hard drives. For that kind of price, you're going to get some old hard drives that may be questionable. By the way, you mentioned the file server. Is that a separate physical machine, or are you file serving on the same machine?
File servers on the virtual machine as well. So that's the core one. That we have a dedicated RAID 5, only 3 disks. So I think they're 6 gig each. Big CCTV grade hard drives, so they're really good, reasonably priced. So kept the cost down. I was going to go SSDs. I probably will do in the future because I'm going to buy them in America because they're a lot cheaper than they are over here, and then slowly swap them out.
So you've got the VMware ESXi. That's the free version. Again, because it's a Dell machine, you got Dell's own cut of that. I know it's available on the Dell website. You install that, and on top of that, you've got Windows running Encodad. You've got Ubuntu. You said you had 1 or 2 instances of Ubuntu on there. And then you mentioned Windows 7 for running. Yeah, for running. So how many virtual machines in total would you say you have running on this Dell server? 5 or 6, 7?
Good question. Let me just have a quick look. I've got access to the board here. So I've currently got 15 up and running on this machine at the moment.
Holy cow.
A mixture of Linux and Windows. Doing different things, doing some testing. We have the file server, obviously. We have Shoutcast streaming servers coming off the back of that as well. We have the DAB MUX, which I'm sure we're going to chat about in a little bit, which then sends out the IQ feeds to the actual modulators. We have literally everything's in this one environment because obviously jumping backwards and forwards on a sort of 6-8 week basis to the US to see my lovely wife, it's and it's essential that I can access everything, and worst case scenario, hit the power button remotely so to bring everything back up when we get around the problems.
So I take it you mentioned that you had Core 32, and that's a mixing engine from Axia. So your audio, your various sources are in the LiveWire domain. They go into the Core 32, which is separate from the server. Yeah. And and now, do you have an actual a physical console attached to that, or are you doing it all remote only? Well, in other words, do you have a Surface along with the Core 32?
It was attached.
Okay, all right, there it is behind you. Okay, we don't need that. We don't need all those faders anymore.
Yeah, we don't need any of that. No, we got rid of it all. We do. Gosh. We actually run the core just purely with that. Yeah, I plug it in occasionally just to make sure. And I've got a little. I bought all the rack and the desk versions of the Surfaces. So I've got a rack in there now. That's actually in the comms cabinet, or is being put into the comms cabinet, so we can just sort of monitor what's going on. But so far, it's just been running a black box in the corner. And then just remote in on the web browser, and away you go.
And then before the show started, you introduced me to your engineering assistant, and I worked. A previous version of this radio station I'm at right now, we also had a similar engineering assistant. And I told you one story before the show started, but another story is that we would come in the next morning, or we would notice that the station might go off the air at 2 a.m. And we figured out that the engineering assistant was actually walking across the console and punching buttons.
Oh yeah.
So I came up with, but now this was back in the 1990s, before AOIP was even a dream. And I put a switch in to take the console off the air and put the automation system directly on the air. And figured maybe you had a similar problem. It's just a liability to have this box full of buttons, and faders out there where the engineering assistant might take a stroll.
Yeah, especially with the flashy lights, when because the crazy thing about it is we use on the Enco systems, we use the array buttons to send text messages to over the telnet port to actually control the surfaces. So these lights are flashing and there's nobody there.
Wow.
And, the assistant likes flashy lights. so yes, it was a bit chaotic.
You've mentioned IP Tablet. This is a software. I think it can run on in a Windows environment, Windows tablet or a Windows PC, and it gives you very customized work surface on preferably a touchscreen tablet or computer that you can customize, and it reaches back and controls your audio console. Now, you can also run it on a local machine and just remote into that machine. How are you set up to use IP Tablet?
We are set up, I'll probably show you at the moment. All right, okay, hold on a minute. Let's just get this going. There we go. We set it up on a virtual machine, and we access it virtually. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I've got it coming through on a VM console on an iPad. Yeah, on an iPad.
Okay.
So, and that's how we actually operate. I just started playing around with it after seeing one of the products you guys have come out with the remote control of the cores and the element consoles, and I thought, well, that looks quite interesting. So let's have a look at that. And we sort of adapted it. It controls the core, it controls the VX, and it also controls the X nodes very effectively. And it's fantastic when you're trying to, pretty much set up a remote studio where you have several different presenters going in, because they're presented with exactly the same I can see, and then I can also see what's happening at our end if there's any problems by just remoting in as well and just mirroring the screens and seeing what's going on. It's a fantastic bit of software, and the nice thing, it's very reasonably priced for the solution we were looking for, because again, we're in a virtual environment. Fortunately, there's no licensings per seat as such in that sense, because only one person uses it at a time, and then when the on-air presenters switch, they mirror in initially, and then the outgoing presenter just disconnects, and it's that simple. But it made a nice environment to make people feel comfortable that our original incarnation and control, I think when we spoke last time about the virtualization, was array buttons on the Enco playout system, which again worked very well. But a lot of people were sort of like, I can't turn the volume up, or I can't do this, or I can't do that. So we've been trying to find some solution ever since. And along come this IP tab, which I believe you guys were using quite a bit at one point, and it solved the problem for me.
Yeah, there are a number of different software solutions to do mixing remotely or within the same place. At least, for my employer, there's Soft Surface. There's now IQS, a software version of the IQ console, which is native HTML5. And then there's IP Tablet, which gives you, as you've referred several times, to gives you control of your VX, your phone system, and our developing partners with IP Tablet. They've set it up to be able to control a lot of different things very easily. And you've gone one step further. Some people run IP Tablet locally wherever they are. You're running it in the virtual machine and remoting into the virtual machine. So that is a really interesting way to do it. It makes it so you only have to actually set it up once, I guess, on the virtual machine, and everybody else just remotes it, mirrors, as you say, into that virtual machine, right?
That was the idea. Yeah. It makes it nice and easy, no complications. And if there's a problem, bang, you're in there, sort it out, and you don't have to replicate to all the different control units and so on. So yeah, it was a brilliant solution, virtualizing it. And again, it works very, very well with a touchscreen on virtualization.
And different broadcasters, have different needs or workflows. So I just mentioned all those different things to let folks know there's not just one way to do this. There are several different ways to do this, and depending on what feature sets you want, or your workflow, or your controlled remote access, that kind of thing, there are plenty of ways. There's not just one way. Not one size fits all. Hey, Shawn, we're going to come back, and when we come back, we're going to talk to you about. I want to hear about your audio processing solutions. You mentioned 9X2. I'm familiar with that, and I tell you, that's a little secret. Buying the Telos or the Omnia 9X2 software that can do your stream encoding, but also do your processing. That is let's say, an economical way to get yourself into Omnia 9 processing, not for FM, but for streaming. And if you're doing DAB, that's like streaming processing. So, well, Shawn, that's very brilliant that you figured that out, and we'll be right back to ask you about that. Hey, our show This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you in part by this guy right here. That's an RJ45 connection. And you know what? RJ45s are not good only for Ethernet, for IP, but also for audio. This is a Studio Hub product. In fact, the other end of this is an XLR connector. Now, here's, you might say, well, that's just for mono audio, Kirk. Well, it is. You could do left channel mono audio, but you can also do AES EBU, also known as AES3. And this would get you, from an AES X node, or there are other brands like a Blade, other ways, other things that have RJ45 connectors for their analog or for their AES digital audio. And at the other end, you've got an XLR connector, and plenty of pieces of equipment have AES digital on an XLR. So this is one way to get that done. Here's another example, though. This one could be used for analog audio. Here's a couple of female XLRs into an RJ45 male. And this would typically be for balanced analog audio to help you get a connection easy. No soldering, no muss, no fuss. It's just really easy to get your audio in and out. That's one thing you get from angryaudio.com is the whole Studio Hub line of beautiful, easy adapters and connectors, headphone amps, and lots of stuff. Another thing that that Angry Audio offers to you are a number of gadgets and gizmos, and one of those is the Bluetooth audio gadget. Bluetooth gadget lets you connect your smartphone to your audio console wirelessly with Bluetooth, and it's a great way to get that done. You're looking at the webpage right now, and you can go to angryaudio.com and read more about the Bluetooth audio gadget. It's easy to pair with your smartphone. There's a spring-loaded switch right on the front for pairing, and it's smart. It will operate in a low latency telephone quality mode to get if you want to carry on a conversation with somebody on the phone, use your smartphone. You don't have to buy a phone hybrid. You use your smartphone along with the Bluetooth audio gadget. But if you've got some music on your smartphone and you want to play that on the air on your audio console, it automatically knows, hey, this is a one-way audio transfer, and we're going to make it the highest quality possible. In fact, it's typically using the aptX algorithm for Android, and using AAC if you're using it on an iPhone. So check this thing out. The Bluetooth audio gadget has been very popular with home studios, podcasters, and so forth, or even for a pro studio. If you just need that Bluetooth connectivity, check it out. The Bluetooth audio gadget from our friends at Angry Audio, angryaudio.com. Hey, we're going to hear from my friend Josh Bone, actually one of his happy customers, about the Max Connect wireless product. We'll be right back.
With all of the recent cybersecurity attacks against large corporations, we were looking for a product that would give us the ultimate security at our transmitter sites and as well as with our broadcast equipment. Max Connect fits the bill very well. Its greatest security feature is the fact that it gives you a single static IP address. Using this single static IP address allows us to close hundreds of open ports on our firewalls across the company and restrict access to only the Max Connect IPs. This has greatly reduced our exposure to the World Wide Web and made us much more secure moving forward. It's also given us the ability to expand as needed in a secure fashion.
Max Connect Wireless, Josh Bone and his crew have put together this system, and it's these 4G LTE modems, but it's not the modem that's special. I mean, those are available from several different companies, and they can make them available to you from several different companies. You might be able to bring your own too, but what's critical is the SIM card, because Max Connect Wireless is actually its own network with deals made with all the major carriers: AT&T, Verizon, Sprint. and T-Mobile, and also available in Canada as well. And it gives you prioritized data and a fixed static IP address for your device. So you can put it at hard to reach transmitter sites. You can get just high quality data, even when everybody else around you, like at a ball game or a parade, any other high density event, they're all using the wireless system, the 4G LTE. Well, this gives you your own prioritized data, and your data will get through. We've used it at several different, for This Week in Radio Tech shows. We've also used it at the NAB show back a couple of years ago. We did a SBE broadcast, and I tell you what, it wasn't happening with the regular carriers, not at all, but it was happening just fine with the Max Connect wireless. So follow John Takacs' advice. Go to Max Connect. That's spelled funny, I know. We'll put it in the show notes. Max with 2 X's, connect with a K.com. Check out Max Connect Wireless. Thanks a lot for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, I'm talking to Shawn Kelly. Shawn is the chief brewmaster, pubmaster, and hotelier, and he's also running, he's the technical specialist for his radio stations. So, Shawn, we were just getting ready to talk about audio processing in this virtualized domain, and you found out how to get an Omnia 9 processing for less. Tell us what you're doing.
Well, basically, yeah, we did. We looked at the Omnia 9s, and it was like, holy, yeah, that's a price tag and a half. That is. But then we come across, obviously, we were talking and having a chat, and came across and mentioned this 9X2 software, which we now have actually running on a machine in the virtual environment, which handles all the processing, gives us nice Omnia 9 sound on our HD streams. And then we use the Omnia, I think it's the Omnia 3 presets for the sort of the lower grade streams that we do out to the sort of the tune-in for the cars and My Radio tuner and things like that. And these smaller internet radios, which we've started seeing on the market shelves over here recently. So we sort of tune each instance to that particular sort of stream and device, and fingers crossed it's working quite well. The other thing I do like about it is the adaptive streaming, which I don't think is really taken off very big in this country, but certainly I find it very useful when I'm driving around the very hilly areas. I live around here in Devon, where you can be pretty much 1,000 feet and then 1,000 feet below sea level before you even know what's happened. So it does come in very useful, the adaptive streaming, when listening to the stations on the move.
Yeah, we'll touch on that for a second. I'm glad you brought that up. The video streaming services like YouTube and Netflix and all these, they use adaptive streaming themselves, and I'll explain that in a second because we haven't gotten to talk about that in a while. But for audio services, I'm just not aware, and maybe I'm just not aware, but I'm not aware of it being adopted on any kind of widespread scale. And adaptive streaming, there's some brand names for it, like Apple has HLS, which stands for HTTP live streaming. There's Microsoft and Smooth Streaming. There was Fraunhofer had their own version. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank on what it is. But basically, your streaming encoder operates at several different bit rates. So you're taking your original stream and you're encoding it at, let's say, 256 kilobits of AAC and maybe 96 kilobits of HEAAC. And then maybe 16 kilobits of XHEAAC. You can encode it in different, same family should be, but different codecs. And your encoder is making chunks, typically 5 seconds. Doesn't have to be 5, but typically 5-second chunks in each of the 3 different bit rates, or more different bit rates if you like. And then these are put on a file server. The receivers out there, people with a smartphone or whatever device is going to be receiving this, the player makes a decision. Hey, do I have enough bandwidth to ask for the 256 kilobit stream, or do I need to downshift to the 96 or the 16 kilobit stream? And so the player has a little bit of brains in it to decide which one it's going to use. Let's say you're going through a good data area, and you can download 5 seconds worth of audio in 0.2 of a second. No problem. We'll do that all day long. But all of a sudden, your data gets bad. You go through an area of low coverage or low data connectivity, and all of a sudden, it's going to take 7.3 seconds to download 5 seconds worth of audio. That ain't going to work for long. So your player says, I'd like the lower bandwidth version of that. And the server to which it's connected said, sure, here's the small file. And you get the small file. Maybe it downloads that in 2 seconds with 5 seconds worth of audio. So I know that was a longer explanation than maybe you wanted to hear, but that's how adaptive streaming works. Your player has the smarts in it to know which file size to ask for, the exact same audio, and it's pretty seamless from 1 5-second chunk to the next to the next. Actually, it's very seamless. You might notice a change in audio quality if you're changing bit rate, but it's good. Now your video services do this anyway. If you, Shawn, maybe you've seen, if you I used to watch cartoons a lot with my son on Netflix, right? And so we would start the cartoon and it would be a little fuzzy, but you know what? It would start right away because it was using a lower bitrate version. But as soon as the Netflix player realizes, oh man, this dude's got all kinds of bandwidth, let's ask for the high quality version. Within 5 seconds or maybe 10, whatever it was, whatever the chunk was, it would ask for the high quality version. And bam, the cartoon would clear right up to perfect, non-jagged lines, not fuzzy. And you'd watch the rest of the movie in high quality. So, okay, that was my soliloquy for the day, Shawn. Does that explain it pretty well, adaptive streaming?
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt. I think you got it bang on there, to be honest. And yeah, I've experienced the Netflix low to high resolution. Basically, all our TVs are streaming now here in the hotel. We don't really use anything to air anymore. House we live in over in LA, same. It's all Apple TV boxes. There's no, we don't even have cable as such there now, just a broadband service. Boom, straight in. So yeah, we experienced the adaptive on video, but like you said, I don't know of anybody myself that's actually got it on audio. I think we're about the only system that does offer this option. On both KISS and HITz do have it on. If you look on the Facebook sites, there's links listed there to actually pick up the playlist file or whatever, which will then automatically kick off a player within a browser, and away it goes. It's great. It is very, very, very reliable. I think it's the nice way of keeping the stream up.
Yeah, I'm not sure about if Chrome browser does it, but I know I've demonstrated this with Safari browser quite a bit. That it'll play HLS streams. Of course, it's an Apple design anyway, Apple HLS, and the Chrome, the Safari browser plays those back perfectly, and it's pretty amazing how that works. So audio processing with the Omnia 9 processing that comes with the Omnia 9X2 streaming encoder. You can make several instances of this, and you're using this, I take it, for streaming, but also you mentioned DAB a couple times, and I want to talk about processing for DAB, and then this thing called a MUX with the I and Q signals. I'm not sure what that is. You can walk us through what that is.
Okay. It's a concept from the 80s. It's been adopted here in Europe as opposed to HD radio. I say here in Europe now. We're not in the European Union anymore, so we consider ourselves a proper island now. But we use DAB. It's quite a legacy technology, and the idea is you bring in several different streams. It goes into a MUX, where then it brings out a data stream with all the encoding in it. And the header packets and this, that, and the other, to split it all back out at the other end. I think they're called IQ streams. Sort of.
The I and Q signals.
Yeah.
This is a way to deliver. This is a way to deliver to the modulator section. There's not a lot of further stuff that has to go on. This is almost ready for going in the DAB modulator and getting put out over the air. So it's a great way to deliver this if you can. And DAB allows that transport to happen. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, that's cool. There's an example of a little DAB modulator. You buy for about £400. Yeah, that's one of our test modulators. It's got a little 100 milliwatt output on it, and then you put that into your line amp, out to your linear amp. And then obviously up the feeds to the aerials. It's a very simple system. The only problem is there's only so much bandwidth for each MUX or an ensemble, as they call it, and you have to mess around with the processing and things like that to get the best sound. Now here in the UK, and I do believe a lot of Europe, in a lot of Europe, when it first got adopted, the streams are terrible. I mean, they were really bad. They were 112 kilobits per second. If you were lucky, a lot of them were 32 kilobits and 64 kilobits. And then if you wanted to do it in stereo, you had to buy 2 channels. They're getting better because the old legacy DAB effectively used MP3. The newer DAB Plus variant, which again has been around for quite a while, is using AAC type encoding, which now has allowed us to add a bit more to the sort of the mux and what we can handle, but we're still pretty limited with it. But we can get around the lower bit rates by playing around with the audio process, especially in Omnia 9 mode, where, as you well know, there's tons and tons of parameters, and we just literally sit here listening to the stream. I then go running out to my car and have a listen to it on that, and if it sounds good, I leave it. If it don't, I go back and tweak it a bit more. And I've been known to sit in the car with my laptop tweaking it, so because obviously you can access these things over a web browser. So go sit in the car and have a little tweak and see if we get the best sound for the different delivery systems. I mean, my Mercedes has tune-in built into its radio system. It's one of on the Command 2 version. I think there's a tune-in option, which is quite good. It links to a Wi-Fi node in the car, and away you go. There are obviously other ways of doing it now, and a lot of Audi and BMW and many other makes of cars out there are popping up now through MyTuner. There's VTuner, and there's I mean, I've got one of these things here. This is a little Le Mega radio. Bought it for about 40 quid, so about $55. This has got DAB on it. It's an internet radio. So we sit here in DAB mode, in test mode, sit here programming up the muxes, and away we go. So we have a test system here, because obviously we've got to have a license in this country to transmit anything more than 100 milliwatts. But it's sufficient through a very nicely tuned area. I get a good response from it driving up the road. So for test purposes, once we're granted our licenses by Ofcom, we'll be pumping out a little bit more power.
A couple of questions. I take it that because you're using the Omnia 9X2, you can take one program into the computer that's running that, and you can process it several different ways for no additional cost. You pay for each, for an input, not for the instances of processing. And I take it you do definitely process different for a web stream of some given bit rate versus a DAB channel that may be a lower bit rate, and you're really trying to eke the best you can out of that system. Yeah, we do. We sit here and play. Obviously, the HD streams. It's real nice top end processing. As the bit rates come down, it's a case of looking at, and not only that, it's what devices are likely to be listening as well. We look at our Shoutcast server logs and see what the most common devices on that particular delivery platforms. We've broken it down to tune in, like I said, VTuners and things like that. So we know roughly where the stuff's coming from, and direct feeds from websites. We have a different instant for that as well. So we can tune it all in to the most appropriate device being used at the time. And that's basically how we do it. Well, in examining those logs and what kind of devices people are listening from, do you have any surprises there? Are you surprised at how people consume your content?
It's interesting. Some of the device names that pop up, you wouldn't expect to be being listened on. I know some of the devices are very good, and I've had compliments back before from people going like, "Wow, that sounds really good on my Sonos or Bose soundbars or whatever." And you think like, "Wait, that's mad." And then you got the little Alexa things. She'll probably start chatting now. I'll just mention their name.
Because you said her name. That's right.
She'll start chatting in a minute.
Way, whoever named her that, which I will not say, really missed an opportunity, because they could have named her the Speaker of the House. Just saying.
Yeah. Well, there's only two ways that's going to go, and I'll just sit on the wall on that one.
Have you tried the male voice available now on your?
I haven't, to be honest with you. I've been so busy recently. After being in isolation and actually contracting COVID recently. I'm trying to catch up with things, so I really haven't had a chance to have a little play around with it yet.
Gotcha. So that was one question. What was the other? Oh yeah, DAB in the UK. I was curious about what frequencies are used there. So what can you say about that? Is it a little television frequency?
Strange enough, you should ask me that. It runs from about 185 megahertz up to around about I think it's 230 megahertz using FM modulation. Now, the clever thing with the DAB is if you GPS sync the actual modulators, you can do it on a single frequency. You can have numerous modulators running and transmitters running all on the same frequency, which is the bizarrest thing. You think, how does that work? But because it's a digital signal, your radio will pick up the strongest one it hears. It doesn't care about the other ones. And then obviously they're all synced with a GPS time clock. You get no interruption. So it's, in one sense, it's a fantastic device. And in another sense, it's an old legacy design from the 80s, which seriously needs updating, to be honest. But it's a good solution. It works. We've run in both single frequency networks and standard multi frequency, where they split the band up into blocks and then sub channels of blocks, and then they assign those blocks around the countries. It's very similar in the America, I would have thought. So there's no crossover and things like that. But the single frequency network got around a lot of sort of, I would say bandwidth problems, but it's in theory you need a lot more transmitters to get a DAB signal out there than you do an old legacy AM or FM signal. So the single frequency network system works pretty good, to be honest.
And just to be sure I'm up to date on this, it's my understanding that in England you've got DAB, not DAB plus, which means that doesn't that mean that you're locked into MPEG layer 2 for the audio coding?
We have both now. We were when it first launched over here. It was just DAB. There's still a lot of legacy stuff out there that will only work on the layer 2s and so on. But we got DAB Plus now, which is using the AAC codecs and so on. So we are able now to get a lot more channels in. I do believe I pick up something like 96 different channels on my little radio I just showed you a minute ago, sat here in the studio. There's a lot of channels there. In some ways, I think it's a good thing. Some ways, I think it's a bad thing. There's been a certain country in Europe that's went and turned off all their FM, and I think they're regretting it because half the stations that appeared on the DAB have now gone bust. So, because obviously it's supply and demand when it comes to advertising. So, and running, obviously, you well know, running radio stations isn't the cheapest hobby in the world.
Well, we unfortunately may end up with a situation of cable TV, 200 channels and nothing on. Nothing worth watching. So that.
Well, especially when you got on demand, you can just sit there and binge watch whatever you want, whenever you want. What's the point of having a cable channel?
Yeah. And this does give rise to our argument that local talent, local news, local happenings, what's happening in your neighborhood, in your town, in your village, in your hamlet, in your city. There's enough of the population interested in that it makes it worthwhile. In fact, I've just heard about a gentleman in Canada who owns a whole slew of radio stations across a wide swath. They're mostly in smaller towns, and they program them all the same from a central location, except local news, and the spots are sold locally. So they have in each market, he has a couple salespeople and a local news person. And so each station gets customized for its market by what's going on. The music is the same at all of them. And I think that the morning show, the breakfast show, the afternoon show, I believe those are the same as well. But the news makes the difference because it's for each market, and that ties the stations into each market. I don't know. It's working for him.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's very similar how it started going that way over here with the big media companies buying up all the local stations, and they've pretty much gone that way with it. It's an interesting technology, and we have a an instance of Enco on our virtual server that we are trying to emulate that on the cheap, I suppose is the nice way of putting it. We've got a successful stream running with it. It does have timing issues occasionally, so it can get certainly entertaining when one news report runs a minute slower than or faster than another one. You suddenly end up with dead time and so on. So that's the things that are going to be overcome somewhere or another. But fortunately, it's a good in one sense. It's been bad I think, for British radio, certainly, because we've lost all our local FM stations. They're all now centralized. They're all networked. And we get one DJ sat in somewhere up country. Now, bear in mind, let me put this in perspective. We only have about 300 FM stations in the UK, right across the entire country. So you can imagine, compared with some of the networks in the States, we are, we're very small scale really when it comes to that. So big bad, these big companies have come in and bought them out, and they've just wiped out all these stations, put a lot of people out of jobs, and tried centralizing everything. It works to a degree if you like that, and you're driving up the motorway, as we call them over here, freeways over there. You get to hear the same music, pretty much listen to the same station right across the country. But it's one of the reasons the PALM Torbay stream has reappeared, because PALM Torbay originally, when it was an FM commercial station, was probably one of the better ones out there. And I've got several of the old DJs that used to work on there, all badgering me to set up a project to see if we can revitalize this, what was a very successful commercial station, because its catchment area is quite big, but its actual, its population is quite big, but its catchment area it's almost like it's in a bowl. Like, I'm thinking the instant like Phoenix, where you put the transmitters on top of the mountains there, just beam it straight down. It's very similar layout. When you go over the hill, you can't hear anything, but when you're in the Bay Area itself, where I have a house, luckily, very nice area, and the reason I got these t-shirts on here, this is my other company that we mess around with. It's a boating touring company. So we've been sort of playing around with the idea of resurrecting this station, maybe hopefully going on to the small scale DAB. But the problem with the small scale DAB over here is it's very much like community radio over here. You're very restricted in what you can do. Then go commercial, it costs too much. And this is what we found when we went commercial with the HITz Digital under a different brand name at the time, which was the Coast to Coast brand name we were doing over in Ireland. And the costs are just astronomical, with this just going up and up and up. And before you knew it, and again, with COVID came along, couldn't have any salesmen out there. People weren't spending any money. Boom, you're gone. So we've resurrected the whole thing online again. Let's try it again under a new brand. And then the guys come along and went, oh, you used to do this, you used to do that. Can we get that 80s sound? I went, well, yeah, strange enough, we've got a box sat here that can be put into the audio IP network, and we can make that 80s sound for you. And it sort of progressed from there. And again, a lot of these guys used to go into studios. They don't do that anymore. There's no studios really anywhere now. I think what was PALM Torbay, which became one of the big national network owned sites, I think their DJ goes in like once a week to the studio there. I don't even turn the lights on half the time, So we're sort of resurrecting this project and having a bit of fun with it and see where it goes. Gone very strictly on the idea. It's not going to be a community radio station, because that's like, from my point of view, that's a nail in the coffin to any project in the UK. When you mention the word community, it just immediately brings people attention to it. It's retired old gentlemen and so on, got nothing better to do during the day except talk to themselves and play some music. So
we got. I'm going to put links. I'll put links to each of your stations in the show notes, and that's where folks can listen. Hey, we're going to come back in a minute. We're talking to Shawn Kelly Shawn is the most interesting man that I know, actually, with a pub and a hotel and a tour boat company and some cool sounding radio stations that are virtualized and have presenters that come in from different places. And Shawn even spends time in the U.S. and runs his radio stations from here as well. Shawn, I'd be interested in your tip of the week coming up after this break. I don't know what you might have in mind to tell us about, what you'd like us to walk away with. Personally, I'm interested in how you gained enough knowledge in virtualization to make it work, whether you just stubbed your toe over and over again until you figured out how it worked, or if you had some help, or if you read some book, well, just whatever, or if you're just naturally smart. Yeah. I'd like to understand how you got to the point where you did being able to virtualize your stuff. We're going to be right back talking to Shawn Kelly after this word. And by the way, the next commercial here, this is for Vox Pro. If you want to produce content that involves your listeners easily, quickly, and in a way that is compelling, check this out from Vox Pro.
Hey, what's happening? St. John here, coming to you from Command Central, and wanted to tell you about the absolute best partner you can have in radio. I'm talking about, boom, Wheatstone's Vox Pro. Lots of different audio software out there. Why Vox Pro? It's the only software designed to do what we needed to do, which is record, edit, playback in real time. When I say lightning fast, I'm going to show you how fast you can edit stuff up in Vox Pro right now. So literally 3 clicks on the controller, mark left, mark right, everything that gets marked, you hit delete, it goes away. It's literally that fast. So we're going to take this part right here. Boom. From caller 9 to him saying, I'm ready. 5, ready for that secret sound. Boom. All of that stuff, hit delete, it goes away. Here's your edit. You are tackling secret sound, caller 9. I'm ready, St. John. So one of the best features of version 7, this is awesome. It's effects macros, and you can literally put a chain of effects together so that instead of having to normalize a phone bit and then use noise reduction on it and EQ it and all that, you can literally build a chain. One button, this one's called call right here. I just click that. All of those processes happen instantaneously. Final thing that I love about Vox Pro, and there's so much more to get into, but one of my favorite things, you can load it on a laptop. I've literally done my show from a hotel room in Armenia to the conference room at, this was fun, jury duty. Great thing, no one could tell the difference. Vox Pro makes it totally easy. Telling you, if you're looking for the best on-air partner, call my friends at Wheatstone, ask them about Vox Pro, and you will be glad you did.
And you can get Vox Pro from our partner and advertiser, Broadcasters General Store. Their website, bgs.cc, or you can call them at my favorite phone number for any broadcast equipment. It's 352-622-7700. 352-622-7700. And Broadcasters General Store will get you just whatever you need for broadcast. Studio lighting, if you're doing some video. Believe it or not, I just bought an adapter kit for a tower, a Roan tower, so I could put a pole mount on the side of an existing tower, installed it myself yesterday, and got it through Broadcasters General Store. They'll do the hard work for you. They'll do the legwork, help you figure out what you need, and get it right to you. Check them out at Broadcasters General Store. Thanks a lot, BGS, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right. Going to wrap it up here in just a couple of minutes. Shawn, we got just literally like 2 minutes for your tip of the week. What can you leave us with?
Okay, very simple. I need to know what that guy's drinking in that advert. That was superb.
How many energy drinks can you have?
Fantastic. Yeah, tip of the week, especially in virtualization. And I think it's the same one we had last time when we were talking about this. Biggest processors you can afford and a stack load of memory, and avoid Windows 10. They're the tips when it comes down to this virtualization at the moment. So that's all I'm going to say on that.
and luckily, if you buy off-lease Dell or HP servers, you can get a bunch of processing cores and a whole bunch of memory. You can add more to off-lease. And look, I'm not suggesting that off-lease used is where everybody wants to go. I get it. If you're running a station like I am or you are, it could be the best way to go. And Shawn, you reminded me about Windows 10. And as long as I've got a bit of a platform here, I'll mention it for just a moment. In Windows 10, a few months ago, they made an update. Actually, maybe it's been almost a year ago. They did an update that changed something internally in Windows. basically called a sleep timer, but it's not your screensaver coming on. That's not that sleep timer. It's it's for developers to know about, and it has to do with how often you can tell Windows to, hey, service me. I'm important. I need service right now. And Windows changed that a lot. And it's weird. It affected, for people that had like an Axia IP audio driver, it affected some people and didn't affect others. And I'm really not sure why, but it took a while to suss out, to figure out what has Windows done that has made some, not all, but some Axia IP audio drivers get a little bit of stuttering in them, a little bit of dead air. And our clever guys at the developers at Axia figured out about this sleep timer. It used to be 1 millisecond. Windows changed it to 15 point something milliseconds, and which totally, messed it when you got to be serviced for audio packets real time with no buffering. You got to pay attention. So anyway, it turns out that you can still tell Windows how long the sleep timer should be, and an updated. It's in beta right now. It should be released soon, but you can get it from support.telosalliance.com. Support.telosalliance.com. Just type in the search bar, type in IP driver Windows 10, and you'll find it. And you can install it. And it absolutely, at least at my stations, about half of my computers had this problem, and it absolutely solved the problem for us and for everybody else that I know of too. So I just want to thank you for bringing that topic up, and I wanted to let my friends who use Axia IP audio drivers know that there's a beta out there that solves this Windows-induced problem in Windows 10. So thanks, Shawn, for reminding me.
Hey, not a problem. All right. Solves a problem I was going to ask you now, because I've got exactly that same problem with one of the virtual machines. So I will go and investigate that later.
It's I'll put in the show notes, great website, support.telosalliance.com. Ask it a plain language question about any Telos Alliance product. There's very likely to have an answer there, and you can read all about it. Good stuff. And if you still don't get it, you can call Telos Support, but or send them an email. But a lot of your answers are right there. Shawn, thank you for taking time, staying up late to be with us. I know it's got to be time to go to bed pretty soon. Thank you. Good to see you, man.
Time for another beer.
There you go. Thank you, sir. Take care. I'm Kirk Harnack. A big thanks to Shawn Kelly. And I'm going to put the links to all of his radio stations online, put those in the show notes. Stay tuned for that, or watch the website for that. thisweekinradiotech.com is the website. You can find us on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is managed by our friends at the Guys from Queens, the GFQ Network. Thanks a lot to Andrew Zarian and to Suncast for managing that for us and keeping it all in line. And you can go subscribe to that channel. You'll get notified when there's a new posting there on that YouTube channel. And we're on Facebook, of course. This Week in Radio Tech has a Facebook page. Appreciate it if you go and like that Facebook page. All right, we got to go. Big thanks to Suncast for producing the show today. As always, thanks a lot. And Andrew Zarian, the founder of the GFQ Network. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.